Gelasius II was Pisan. A monk of Monte Cassino and chancellor of Pope Paschal II, Caetani was unanimously elected to succeed him. In doing so, he also inherited the conflict with Emperor Henry V over investiture. Gelasius spent a good part of his brief papacy in exile. He was born between 1060 and 1064 at Gaeta into the Pisan branch of the Caetani family, and he became a monk of Monte Cassino. Henry V sought to enforce the privilege of investiture conceded and later revoked in 1112 by the papacy under duress by Paschal II. He drove Gelasius II from Rome in March 1118, pronounced his election null and void, and set up Maurice Bourdin, Archbishop of Braga, as antipope under the name of Gregory VIII. Gelasius II fled to Gaeta, where he was ordained a priest on the 9th of March 1118, and on the following day received episcopal consecration. He at once excommunicated Henry V and the anti-pope, and under Norman protection was able to return to Rome in July. He set out for France, consecrating the Cathedral of Pisa on the way, and arrived at Marseille in October. He was received with great enthusiasm at Avignon, Montpellier, and other cities, held a synod at Vienne in January 1119, and was planning to hold a general council to settle the investiture contest when he died at the Abbey of Cluny. Calixtus II was Burgundian. His pontificate was shaped by the investiture controversy, which he was able to settle through the Concordat of Worms in 1122. As son of Count William I of Burgundy, Guy was a member of and connected to the highest nobility in Europe. He became Archbishop of Vienne and served as papal legate to France. He attended the Lateran Synod of 1112. He was elected pope at Cluny in 1119. The following year, prompted by attacks on deniers of Christ, he issued the bull Sicut Judaeus, which forbade Christians, on pain of excommunication, from forcing deniers of Christ to convert, from harming them, from taking their property, from disturbing the celebration of their festivals, and from interfering with their cemeteries. In March 1123, Calixtus II convened the First Lateran Council, which passed several disciplinary decrees, such as those against simony and concubinage among the clergy and violators of the truce of God. Honorius II was Casalesi. Although from a humble background, his obvious intellect and outstanding abilities saw him promoted up through the ecclesiastical hierarchy. Attached to the Frangipani family of Rome, his election as pope was contested by a rival candidate, Celestine II, and force was used to guarantee his election. Honorius's pontificate was concerned with ensuring that the privileges the Roman Catholic Church had obtained through the Concordat of Worms were preserved and, if possible, extended. He was the first pope to confirm the election of the Holy Roman Emperor. Distrustful of the traditional Benedictine order, he favored new monastic orders such as the Augustinians and the Cistercians, and sought to exercise more control over the larger monastic centers of Monte Cassino and Cluny Abbey. He also approved the new military order of the Knights Templar in 1128. Honorius II failed to prevent Roger II of Sicily from extending his power in southern Italy, and was unable to stop Louis VI of France from interfering in the affairs of the French Church. Like his predecessors, he managed the wide-ranging affairs of the Church through papal legates. With his death in 1130, the Church was again thrown into confusion, with the election of two rival popes, Innocent II and the anti-pope Anacletus II. Innocent II was Roman. His election as pope was controversial, and the first 8 years of his reign were marked by a struggle for recognition against the supporters of Anacletus II. He reached an understanding with King Lothair III of Germany, who supported him against Anacletus and whom he crowned as Holy Roman Emperor. Formerly a Cluniac monk, he was made Cardinal Deacon of San Angelo in 1116 by Pope Paschal II. Pope Calixtus II would have him conduct relations with the Holy Roman Emperor Henry V in 1122 and King Louis VI of France in 1123. In 1124, he became a close advisor to Pope Honorius II. He would make the Knights Templar answerable only to the papacy. At the Second Lateran Council, he would see King Roger II of Sicily excommunicated, and banning of the use of crossbows as well as slings and bows against Christians. He would have several of his nephews elevated to cardinals before and after his death. A struggle with the town of Tivoli would occur, and the Roman factions that wished Tivoli annihilated took up arms against Innocent. In 1143, as the Pope lay dying, the Commune of Rome, to resist papal power, began deliberations that officially reinstated the Roman Senate the following year. The Pope was interred in a porphyry sarcophagus that contemporary tradition asserted had been the Emperor Hadrian's. Celestine II was Tifernati. Guido di Castello studied under Pierre Abelard. In Rome, he became a subdeacon and a scriptor apostolicus under Pope Calixtus II. He participated in the first undisturbed papal election that Rome had seen for 82 years. He was opposed to Innocent II's concessions to King Roger II of Sicily and refused to ratify the Treaty of Mignano. He was in favor of the Plantagenet's claim to the English throne, refusing to renew Innocent II's grant to King Stephen's brother, Henry of Blois. The principal act of his papacy was the absolution of Louis VII of France. King Louis had refused to accept the nomination of Pierre de la Châtre as the Archbishop of Bourges, who went to see Innocent II to have his nomination confirmed. Celestine died in the monastery of St. Sebastian on the Palatine Hill and was buried in the south transept of the Lateran. Celestine II is the first pope listed in the prophecies of Saint Malachi. Lucius II was Bolognese. His pontificate was notable for the unrest in Rome associated with the Commune of Rome and its attempts to wrest control of the city from the papacy. He supported Empress Matilda's claim to England in the anarchy and had a tense relationship with King Roger II of Sicily. In 1130, he was again appointed legate to Germany by Pope Innocent II, where he was instrumental in convincing Lothair III to make 2 expeditions to Italy for the purpose of protecting Pope Innocent II against the antipope Anacletus II. In Portugal, King Afonso I offered to do homage to Lucius, as he had done to Pope Innocent II, and to make the Pope the feudal suzerain of his lands. Lucius accepted, but he did not acknowledge Afonso as King of Portugal, but instead as Dux Portugalensis. The royal title would eventually be conferred by Pope Alexander III. The Senate of Rome was re-established, led by merchants and artisans, and absent of the urban nobility. They sought to strip the Pope of his temporal authority. The Commune of Rome would go to war with the Pope, who would be backed by the Roman nobility, igniting the Roman Forum into a battleground. Lucius marched against the capital with a small army, but was driven back and died from his injuries at San Gregorio Magno al Celio, where he was under the protection of the neighboring Frangipani fortress. Lucius II was buried at St. John Lateran in the circular portico behind the apse. Eugene III was Pisan. He was the first Cistercian to become pope. In response to the fall of Edessa to the Muslims in 1144, Eugene proclaimed the Second Crusade. He was beatified in 1872 by Pope Pius IX. From the 16th century, he is commonly identified as member of the family of Paganelli di Montemagno. Bernardo's election was assisted by being a friend and pupil of Bernard of Clairvaux, the most influential ecclesiastic of the Western Church and a strong asserter of the Pope's temporal authority. In June 1148, Eugene III returned to Italy and took up his residence at Viterbo. He was unable to return to Rome due to the popularity of Arnold of Brescia, who opposed papal temporal authority in the city. Eugene stayed at Tusculum until the 7th of November. At the end of November 1149, through the aid of the King of Sicily, he was again able to enter Rome. But the atmosphere of open hostility from the Commune soon compelled him to retire. Emperor Frederick I Barbarossa promised to aid Eugene against his subjects who had revolted, but the support never came. Eugene III died at Tivoli on the 8th of July, 1153. Though the citizens of Rome resented Eugene III's effort to assert his temporal authority, they recognized him as their spiritual lord. Until the day of his death, he continued to wear the coarse habit of a Cistercian monk under his robe. He was buried in the Vatican with every mark of respect. Anastasius IV was Roman. He was a Roman son of Benedictus de Subura, probably of the family of Dimitri. During his short pontificate, he played the part of a peacemaker. he came to terms with the Emperor Frederick Barbarossa in the vexing question of the appointment to the See of Magdeburg, and closed the long quarrel, which had raged through 4 pontificates, about the appointment of William Fitzherbert to the See of York by sending him the pallium, in spite of the continued opposition of the powerful Cistercian order. Anastasius IV also devoted much time and expenses on the Lateran Basilica and Palace back at Rome. Anastasius IV died on the 3rd of December, 1154, and was succeeded by Cardinal Nicholas Breakspere as Pope Adrian IV. Anastasius IV was laid to rest within the Helena sarcophagus, which was brought out and reused as his tomb. Adrian IV was the only English pope. Adrian was born in Hertfordshire, England. As pope, he would have warm relations with the King of England, Henry II. He received an education as he traveled through France. He would be sent to Catalonia and take part in the Reconquista against Al-Andalus, and he was appointed Bishop of Albano sometime around 1149. As bishop, Breakspere was soon sent on another diplomatic mission, this time to Scandinavia. In the middle of a civil war, Breakspere reorganized the church in Norway and then moved on to Sweden. He was unable to complete his coronation service, however, because of the perilous state of politics in Rome, which at the time was a den of heresy and republicanism. Adrian would fail to ally himself with Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I, and instead ally himself with the Byzantine Emperor Manuel I Komnenos. This alliance would lead to nothing but losses, as Komnenos would be defeated after a failed invasion of the south of Italy, which was held by the Norman King William I of Sicily. Following Adrian's death at Anagni, there was uncertainty as to who to succeed him, with both pro- and anti-imperial cardinals voting for different candidates. Although Pope Alexander III officially took over, the subsequent election of an anti-pope led to a 22-year-long schism. Alexander III was Senese. Alexander became pope after a contested election, but had to spend much of his pontificate outside Rome, while several rivals, supported by Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I Barbarossa, claimed the papacy. Alexander rejected Byzantine Emperor Manuel I Komnenos' offer to end the East-West schism, sanctioned the Northern Crusades, and held the Third Council of the Lateran. He died at Civita Castellana on the 30th of August, 1181. It was 1 week short of 22 years since his election, the longest papacy since Adrian I in the 8th century. The city of Alessandria in Piedmont is named after him. Lucius III was Lucchese. Prior to being elected pope, he had a long career as a papal diplomat. His papacy was marked by conflicts with Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I, his exile from Rome, and the initial preparations for the Third Crusade. A native of the city of Lucca, he was born around 1100 as Ubaldo, son of aristocrat Orlando Alicingoli. He had close ties to the Cistercians, but it seems that he never joined the order. In 1177, Alicingoli took part in the negotiation of the Treaty of Venice, where an agreement was reached between Alexander III and Emperor Frederick I, who had been excommunicated for his support of the successive antipopes Victor IV, Paschal III, and Calixtus III. In pursuance of his anti-imperial policy, Lucius declined in 1185 to crown Henry of Hohenstaufen as Frederick I's destined successor. In November 1184, Lucius held a synod at Verona, which condemned the Cathars and Patarines, Waldensians, Josephines, Pelagians, and Arnaldists, and anathematized all those declared as heretics and their abettors. In 1185, preparations began for the Third Crusade in answer to the appeals of King Baldwin IV of Jerusalem. Before they were completed, Lucius III died in Verona. Urban III was Cuggionese. Crivelli was born in Cuggiono as the son of Guala Crivelli and had 4 brothers, Pietro, Domenico, Pastore, and Guala. It is often said that the future Pope Celestine IV was the son of Urban's sister. He studied in Bologna. In 1173, Crivelli was made a cardinal by Pope Alexander III. His original title is unknown, but he opted to be the cardinal priest of San Lorenzo in Lucina in 1182. Lucius appointed him Archbishop of Milan in 1185, which he would continue to hold as Pope. Urban III would continue to antagonize the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I, as he could not forgive Frederick's sacking of Milan in 1162, where several of Urban's relatives had been proscribed or mutilated. He refused to crown as King of Italy Frederick I's son Henry, who had married Constance, the heiress of the Kingdom of Sicily. By this marriage bond, the papacy lost that Norman support on which it had so long relied in its contests with the emperor. He would also bring peace between England and France through threats of excommunication. As Henry conspired with Urban, Frederick blocked off communication from Verona to the Germans. Prior to being able to excommunicate Frederick, Urban would die. Gregory VIII was Beneventani. Becoming Pope after a long diplomatic career as Apostolic Chancellor, he was notable in his brief reign for reconciling the papacy with the estranged Holy Roman Empire and for initiating the Third Crusade. Alberto de Mora was born about 1105 in Benevento of a noble family. He would join the religious order of Premonstratensian at a young age. He was a canon at St. Martin's Abbey in Laon. He later became a professor of canon law in Bologna. Shortly before his election to the papacy, Alberto founded a monastery in his hometown of Benevento. His previous dealings with Frederick Barbarossa put the church back in a friendly relationship with the Holy Roman Emperor. In response to the defeat of the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem at the Battle of Hattin, Gregory issued the papal bull Audita Tremendi, calling for the Third Crusade. Gregory traveled to Pisa in order to end Pisan hostilities with Genoa, so that both seaports and naval fleets could join together for the crusade. On the way to Pisa, he stopped at Lucca and ordered Antipope Victor IV's body to be removed from his tomb and his remains thrown out of the church. Gregory died in Pisa on the 17th of December, 1187, of a fever after holding the papacy for only 57 days. He was buried in the Duomo in Pisa. The tomb and the papal remains were destroyed in the 1600 fire of the cathedral. Clement III was Roman. He ended the conflict between the papacy and the city of Rome by allowing the election of magistrates, which reinstalled the papacy back in the city after a 6-year exile. Clement, faced with a deplete college of cardinals, created 31 cardinals over 3 years, the most since Hadrian IV. He died the 20th of March, 1191, and was quickly replaced by Celestine III. He was the cardinals' second choice, but their first choice, Cardinal Theobald of Ostia, refused the papal throne. Clement was the second Roman pope since Innocent II. He would fill the papacy with Roman cardinals. Clement sent the Archbishop of Tyre, Josias, to persuade King Henry II of England and King Philip II of France to undertake the Third Crusade. The Romans, uncontrolled by the Pope, would split into 2 factions, each taking sides with either that of the Normans or the Germans. Clement would crown Henry VI as Holy Roman Emperor and in turn anger him by bestowing Sicily on Tancred, son of Roger III, Duke of Apulia. Clement would ban certain items from the embargoed Islamic world. Clement would make the Scottish Church answerable to Rome alone rather than to the Archbishop of York. Celestine III was Roman. He had a tense relationship with several monarchs, including Emperor Henry VI, King Tancred of Sicily, and King Alfonso IX of Leon. Giacinto Bobone was born into the noble Orsini family in Rome. He partook in 2 legatine missions to Spain, with the later mission as the Cardinal Deacon of Santa Maria in Cosmedine. He threatened to excommunicate Henry VI, whom he had crowned after becoming Pope, for wrongfully keeping King Richard I of England imprisoned, but was interceded by the College of Cardinals. He placed Pisa under an interdict, which was lifted by his successor, Innocent III, in 1198. He would threaten excommunication of Duke Valdemar for his imprisonment of the Bishop of Schleswig, as well as threaten to put the Kingdom of Denmark under interdict. He would condemn the marriages of King Alfonso IX of Leon and excommunicate him for his second marriage. He would excommunicate him again for allying with the Almohad Caliphate in their war against Castile, placing an interdict over Leon. In December 1196, Celestine issued a bull acknowledging the possessions of the Teutonic Knights. Celestine would have resigned the papacy and recommended a successor shortly before his death, but was not allowed to do so by the cardinals. Innocent III was Roman. His influence was felt through all of Europe, where he claimed supremacy over all of Europe's kings. He was instrumental in the Fourth Lateran Council. This resulted in a considerable refinement of Western canon law. Innocent greatly extended the scope of the Crusades, directing crusades against Muslim Iberia and the Holy Land, as well as the Albigensian Crusade against the Cathars in southern France. He organized the Fourth Crusade of 1202 to 1204, which ended in the sack of Constantinople. Although the attack on Constantinople went against his explicit orders, and the Crusaders were subsequently excommunicated, Innocent reluctantly accepted this result, seeing it as the will of God to reunite the Latin and Eastern Orthodox churches. In the event, the sack of Constantinople and the subsequent period of Franco-Cratia heightened the hostility between the Latin and Greek churches. Innocent III, however, died suddenly at Perugia and buried in its cathedral until Pope Leo XIII had it transferred to the Lateran in December 1891. He and Gregory IX would be among the 23 figures at the doors of the U.S. House of Representatives in honor of their influence on the development of American law.